All right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here this evening. Just for those who haven't, how many were here on June 19th when we came together? I see a lot of familiar faces. Excellent. So most of you know me, but because we're out in television land, I will introduce myself again. Rachel Monades, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, and tonight is our second meeting of a stakeholder engagement meeting to really talk about the building, the construction, or the possibility of having centralized options for our families in terms of services, what would be in that building, and how we can best provide the best family engagement support to our community. And so thank you for being here on our second evening. We have a lot to cover as we did on our first one, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to Dr. Marsden.
And good evening, everybody. Thank you for making the time to be here. I'm Dale Marsden, the superintendent of schools, and so pleased to see so many familiar faces. And thank you for your energies and efforts to get us to where we are tonight, because tonight your input will help us take this on to a timeline that can have the board take action August 15th and then begin to look at funding in September. And you'll hear more about the details of what our timeline looks like later tonight. But as Dr. Monera said, you're here because we've been working hard to find a way to identify one place where we can offer the programs, services, and supports that our children need, our families need, our students in one place. And so tonight you're going to look at the timeline for the location, whether we'll have permanent building or lease a building, and then we'll talk about some actions we can take immediately so we're not just waiting until a building is built to begin some of the work that we need to do for our students and families, and then prioritize the needs that are before us. So I want to thank all of you for your consistency in coming to the meetings and putting your head and heart into the work we're doing, because this is work not just for our children today, but our children's children down the road. This is an investment of your time that will actually pay off in the long run for so many others to follow. So thank you so much for carving time out of your busy lives in a very quick summer. I know summer went by much faster than many of us thought it would, and yet here we are. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see all of you this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Marsden. So as we always start our meetings, we have our Basics for Excellence, and we have our two of our parent leads, Ms. Robertson and Ms. Cisneros. Were we doing this together? Yes, Ms. Cisneros? I don't know. And it's a team-building activity, so without further ado.
Good evening, everyone. I know I asked that we not hold hands or do an activity that it requires us to hold hands, so we're not going to hold hands, but it is going to require you to stand up and sit. So just bear with me. So we'll do a practice run. So I'm going to ask you to stand if you rather drink coffee in the morning or have a cup of ice water. Okay, sorry.
Good evening again. My name is Lilia Cisneros Felix. I'm the DLAC president. Buenas noches. Gracias a los padres por acompañarnos. Antes de que la señora Giovanna comience algo, estábamos viendo en la reunión que tuvimos, queríamos ver seguir los guías de la excelencia para la reunión, pero nosotros en DLAC pusimos nuestras guías que se aplican más a nuestros padres. I was just saying that at DLAC, we considered guiding ourselves through the excellence, yes. But as I was thinking about it, we at DLAC came up with our own, kind of adapted our own. And so before we start with this meeting, I was going through them, and I just want to read to you so that it applies. I feel that this applies to all of us in general. And so it's we're going to go with those that are part of DLAC, are familiar with this. And number 2, nos centramos en la necesidad de los padres y estudiantes aprendices de inglés, pero esta vez está aplicando no solamente a los aprendices de inglés, sino que a todos los estudiantes en el distrito, a nivel del distrito. So our expectation that that I would like our meeting to be guided by, it's number 2, we have 8, and I felt it went more on We focus on the needs of our parents, English learner, and our English learner students, but this meeting does not involve only English learners. It involves all of our students, the community. So that's why I felt that this applies. It goes very well with our meeting. Hopefully, we can keep that in mind, that when we make the decisions that we're gonna make tonight is based on that, not only on one specific ethnicity, but the community itself, our children, which are the number one priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna do that again. So, because I don't drink coffee, so you're drinking decaffeinated versus caffeinated, right? So in the morning it's caffeinated. Okay, so if you would please stand if you prefer caffeinated coffee in the morning versus decaffeinated. Okay, okay. Okay, so that's how we're gonna do this. So I'm gonna go through a list of questions and you'll stand or remain seated depending on what you prefer. So the first one is, please stand if you prefer to visit the dentist rather than the doctor. Oh, wow. Everybody grill okay? Everybody who prefers to go? Don't nobody want to go to the dentist, okay. So everybody must be in good health though, because that means we prefer to go to the doctor, so we all must visit the doctor on a regular basis. Good, good. Okay, so please stand if you prefer broccoli over carrots. Okay. Okay, so look around. Those who are seated, look around. These are your neighbors who prefer to eat broccoli over carrots, so you can have a seat. Please stand if you prefer to listen to music over watch TV. Okay, okay. Please stand if you prefer to own a lizard rather than a snake. Neither is not an option. You got to pick one. No? Okay, you can have a seat. Please stand if you prefer a mountain holiday over a beach holiday. Okay. Somebody said, I'll take any holiday. Please stand if you prefer to read minds rather than be invisible. If you prefer to read minds, please stand. Okay, have a seat. Please stand if you rather be an Android or an iPhone. Stand if you rather be an Android. Okay, you guys are few. Please stand if you prefer to be completely bald over being hairy all over your body. Okay, he'd rather be completely bald. Okay. Please, please stand if you would prefer to be the most popular over being the smartest. So if you rather be the most popular, no, okay. We got some smart people. You can't be, you can be both. You can be both. Please stand if you rather go without television over fast food. So stand if you prefer to go without television over fast food. Oh, wow. So if you prefer to go without television versus going without fast food, stand if you prefer to go without television. You don't like fast food? Yeah, I am too. So we're going to skip that one. Y'all confuse me. Please stand if you prefer to be hot over cold. So if you prefer to be hot, please stand. Hot over cold. Okay, you can have a seat. Stand if you rather change the future. Stand if you could see the future over changing the past. So if you had to choose, would you rather see the future or change the past? So stand if you rather see the future. Okay. So what would you give somebody a shout out? What would you do if you can see the future? What would you do with that information? Change it. Huh? Plan better. That's a good one. Anybody else? Act better in the present. Okay. You would bet big. Okay, a few more. If you could be 3 inches taller versus being 3 inches shorter, which would you choose? So stand if you could be 3 inches taller. That's going to be all of the height-deprived people. Okay. Okay, last one. Would you prefer to wrestle a lion? If so, please stand over wrestling a shark. Oh, wow. And so for those of you who feel comfortable with taking on a lion, why do you feel like you can take that on versus a shark? So you'll last a little longer in the fight, maybe? Okay. Yo, a real story? Would you share it real quick? Can you? Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. Yeah, that's a good one. He said, Dr. Marsden said he heard a story of a man taking on a lion. And I was like, could you share that Bible? He was like, it's in the Bible. Yeah. Okay. So I'm done. Thank you guys for participating.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. And so that's part of our goals. When we come together, it's really, I'm going to jump down to the experiential outcome. We want to continue to build and nurture relationships, and how do you do that but then to get to know each other, right? So we appreciate the opportunities that we have, whether we're holding hands and looking to each other's eyes or standing up and down, to get to know each other a little bit more and just to have some laughter. So that's very nice. So today, as Dr. Marsden shared, and it is on your agenda, we've got some pretty aggressive outcomes, but we believe that we are going to be able to achieve them. We're going to share the timeline for building our location. What would it be for a permanent building versus lease building? Share the actions for the in the meantime services, because we know this building's going to take some time. So what's going to happen in the meantime? That's something we know that the parents are you're very interested in. And then we are going to share the information that we collected from the last time we were together. And so we brought those posters for you. So if you look to this side of the room, you should see your poster where you visualized what would this building look like, what would be inside of it. And we asked you to dream, close your eyes, and think big and dream together. And so that's on this side of the room. All of that information was taken and grouped into themes or big topics, and so we'll be sharing that with you. On this side of the room, we also asked what would need to happen to continue to build your confidence in the work that we're working towards, and so we're going to come back to this confidence line at the end of this evening. I also want to refer you to your notes, so I'm just going over last meeting. Your packets, if you pull out this buff-colored page, I think is what we call it. Remember that you looked at the data of the surveys. Remember, we had over 7,000 surveys, and we had data, and in small groups, you looked at what the data showed around what our parents are saying they would like to see in this new location. And really, the location, the building itself, it is not one or the other. There was conversation last time, and there continues to be conversation. Is it for enrollment or is it for services? And actually, it's not one or the other. It is both. So when you see the prioritized data that was collected from the posters, you'll see that there's some big themes. Our community would like to have a space where they could find out information about our educational programs. What is offered around our English learner programs, our GATE, in special ed. How do I enroll my student, and where would I enroll my student? Do I have to go to the school? Can I enroll them right there? That's under educational programs, and that's some of what will be provided, or that's what will be provided at this building, but that's not the only thing. Because the other big piece that is coming out, and again, we'll look further at the data, and what you shared, is we want some services, right? We want some services around immunization. We want to be able to go somewhere and get some referrals on mental health. We want services around screenings, those type of things. So you'll see that what you shared in your larger group was put into big clusters, if you will, or pockets of information. And so when this building is established, and as Dr. Marsden said, it's for our students now, and it's for our students in the future going forward, that it's not one or the other. It is a centralized location for services and access to what San Bernardino City Schools has to offer our students. The buff paper just talked about the actual when this building is opened and available. When would we have that? What would be the hours? What do we want to see in there, right? So we said 89% said they want to be able to enroll both at their schools and at this center, but they also want mobile online enrollment options. So that was something else. When should we have this open? Monday through Friday was the big consensus, but we should have at least one night a week open for those parents who need to come in later, and we should have at least one time during the month where someone could go in on the weekends. So we know that that sets some parameters, and then some of the other information that I've shared. So this is just an overview of what we shared at the last meeting. Tonight we will go over what the themes are. Again, as I shared before, educational programs, health programs, and physical health, immunization type of work, as well as mental health services. And then what would that timeline be? So we'll be sharing that information. And again, you'll give us some input on, did we capture everything? Are we on the right track? And is there anything else we need to know? And you'll get some timelines. So without further ado with that, I'm going to bring up Tom Pace, our Director of Facilities, and he's going to start going through the actual facilities part of the work. Come on up, Tom.
How is everyone? Nice. I try not to use a microphone, but I guess I have to. Oh, nice. This is so exciting. All right, the good news is, listening to the up and down exercise that we did, we no longer need to provide medical services because no one in this room apparently goes to the doctor or the dentist. So that will eliminate at least a couple pages of my presentation tonight. So the building has already shrunk, so I love it. All right, so we met last in June, and we did our nice visualization project where we looked at what you would want in a building. We took all of those results and we laid them out in my office, and we decided to start labeling each individual one, and we grouped them, and we tried to understand what all of the items on there meant. I realized our spelling is deplorable, so it took us a little bit of effort to try to figure out what we wanted in the building. And then some of you were very specific about where it should be, like 7th and Arrowhead. And we took all of your results and we grouped them into 3 major components. So if we, yeah, perfect. So what we're trying to build, and that's why we laid out all of the results, was to try to figure out what we'd want to build. So we have determined that we need educational services, social health services for the family and students, and something I call building concepts, what the feel of the building is, anything basically not related to a service. Those items would include a lobby, air conditioning, a warm feel. There are a lot of different items identified. And so we're going to take a brief few minutes to talk about what was found in each one of those categories. Actually, if you look, I think we have a handout. The purple handout basically identifies those same 3 groupings, and it lists, we took all of them and kind of grouped them again under each category. So for example, under educational services, the first item says program options and assessment, and it lists all the different programs. You'll notice that there's a column with a bunch of numbers. You're probably asking yourself, what is that? Every time an item was identified and it was repeated, we identified how many times it was repeated at the tables. There were 14 tables the last time we met. So you can see that the top item, program options and assessment, was noted 14 times. So we were able to establish the priorities of the building based off of your input. So why don't we run through that? Under educational services, we have program options and assessment. Underneath that, we have a category that we kind of called advocacy. I'm getting old and I need an eye check, so I'm going to turn my own page, which is even smaller. That's even better. Thank you. Where we group things called college readiness programs, tutoring, homeless and foster services. That was shown to basically be at about a 50% on every table. We looked at extended learning, summer school, adult school, internships, and community service. Also very close to 50% of you would like that service in the building. And then youth services, sports were listed, and so we kind of grouped that at the bottom, and only about 2 tables wanted youth services in the building. The next column, social and health services for family and students. We identified health and mental services, assessments, referrals, behavioral resources, counseling, crisis support, immunizations, TB, sports, physicals, dental, vision, and so forth. And that too got 14 out of 14. Community services, basically resources to access other government agencies, legal services, hotline crisis, fingerprinting, laundry services, clothing exchange, and then down below that, parent services, job center, job opportunities, and job training. In the building concepts section, we found items such as a warm entry, a diverse staff, knowledgeable staff, a professional staff, a bilingual staff, a customer service-oriented staff, feel the love in quotation marks, a directory to tell people where to go, and that was roughly half of you had looked for those types of services in the building. A centralized location, ample parking close to the bus, shuttle transportation, and so on and so forth. Meeting rooms, they have to be technology-driven, access to media, and a library. And then my favorite down below, the food court. I'm hoping there's a Starbucks in there, cafeteria, snack bar, and another one of my favorites, a student store to sell supplies at a discount. So those were kind of the major themes that were touched at each table. I was hoping we could take a few minutes, talk amongst your table. I want to make sure that we captured what we heard last time. I don't want to miss the mark on those priorities, because in a second I'm going to share with you the top priorities. So if you take a minute or two, talk amongst yourselves, make sure that what we captured there is what you are looking for. Raise your hand if you have something that you feel has been missed, and we'll jot that down before we move on. So why don't you go ahead and take just a quick minute or two for that. All right, are we getting close? Everyone have an idea? Yes? All right. Anyone have anything they want to share? Anyone have a spokesman that wants to share any information? Sure, over here.
Was going, so I don't know if that's changed in the plans, or it's just the assessment center now?
No, and I don't think that, one of the things that I don't think that we have completely finalized is who's moving, who's supervising the services provided. From my perspective, I was just grouping what was shared into a category that we would then further define as far as who's moving, who would be supporting the services required there.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers the question, more or less.
I have a question on parent services.
I think your table's only allowed one question, but.
Where is the parent university?
Good question. I don't think we've defined that either. So if you look in here, there's a couple different areas where a parent university can be incorporated. So from here, and maybe we'll touch on that in a second, we're going to define each one of the spaces for this. A parent university, I think, one of the things when we look at the square footage of this building, what we learned when we studied the responses is that it's actually kind of a large building, larger than I want or anticipated, or our budget allows is probably better put. So we're going to have to get creative in the design to kind of have some shared spaces. The parent university, so if you look on here, we talked about parent training. I envision a large room for parent training, a media room. So I think that's one of the types of services that can be incorporated into a shared room. So I don't think it needs its own dedicated room, but I think that we would find space for a parent university. Gear Up is another example. I don't think that we're going to have a specialized room for some of these spaces. I think it's just going to be a shared utilization of the building. So we'll further define that in some of our some of the meetings to come. Any other questions, comments, concerns? We'll go to the middle group. Then we'll come back here to the opinionated group over here.
My table asked for me to share, and I think this might be covered when we talk about the plan for, like, in the meantime, that some of the things under educational services are currently located at the PDC, so they were wondering if those would stay here or if they would move somewhere else before this building is complete.
Perfect. I think that kind of goes along with the answer I gave previously, that now that we know what services need to be put into the building, we're going to further define who's going to supervise those services and who potentially would be moving from building to building, if anyone. We'll go back.
Thank you. I noticed that there was something alluding up there to whether or not you should lease a building or you should purchase or build the building. And we had an absolutely outstanding enrollment center. And then when the economy went belly up, we lost that. And I don't think we have regained all the services or the cohesion that we had down there. So I think it would be more important to own the building. The school district should own the building.
Noted.
Hello? Oh. I have a quick question in regards to building concepts. Where you say diversity, is that covering culture competency? Because that's, to me, that's two different. When I'm talking about not diversity of staff, I mean, I understand that it should be a diversity of staff, but when I think about culture competency is to understand our culture and our climate in which our city, consists of, because we are a low social economic area, and we have people, professional staff, both teachers, administrators, who really don't connect to our children and our parents. And I see that if we talking about building relationships, we have to have culture competency to build those relationships and to fill in gaps.
Well said. And I don't think that a lot of those were meant for just the staff. The responses that we read, I took to have the feel of the building. So that's why it's under building concepts. I think we have to build spaces that touch those who want to come for the service. And I think the staff is also an extension of that. They have to be a reflection of that and understand the community needs and be able to speak to the people that show up for the services required.
Can I get some clarification on under program options and assessments, the educational services, are we talking about, because my understanding from last time in my table group discussion was we were talking about like one staff member from that department kind of being there just to kind of provide information. And then when Rebecca asked her question, I didn't know if maybe they were thinking the whole department. So can we get clarification as to which it is?
Thank you. So that's part of what we want to actually clarify here with the team. We took exactly verbatim here and tried to find similarities. But if we go down, let's use another example. If we go down to extended learning, right? And it says on there summer school. That doesn't mean that summer school would be offered at this building. That means that a family can find out about summer school options at this building, as well as they can find out about summer school options at their local school, as well as other locations. So what we believe, and we'll clarify here as a group as we further move through, is much of this is about having a location where a family new to the community would know exactly where to go to initially find out what is available in this very large school district for me as a new family. How do I, as I learn San Bernardino City Schools, how do I find out what I can provide for my child so it's not based off of word of mouth, although word of mouth may be, oh, go down, they've got this great center right there on whatever location it ends up being. And then that could be word of mouth. But so that the information is available to whomever in our district chooses to have it versus those who happen to be fortunate enough to stumble upon it. So that being said, same thing could be said about some of the other programs on here. It might end up that, well, and this is not to pick on any particular program, but for example, GATE, maybe it's not that the GATE told every person who works in GATE needs to be at this location, but that we need to be sure that we have the appropriate information and people to talk about it so that no matter who walks through the door, they are getting the kind of information that they deserve and that they're getting it in a manner where they feel like the person engaging with them actually cares about them and wants to hear what they have to say and feels welcomed. So it seems like, as I'm sharing this, I'm seeing head shaking. That is really the full intent, is that we have access for anybody coming into our community to know what our schools offer, and that we keep that updated, and that the people who are there to welcome our families are well aware of it and can share the information, can answer questions, as well as maybe connect to other places. Because if we jump to health services and mental services, that doesn't mean we're going to have a full-scale hospital available, right? That would mean that maybe we're going to be partnering with Department of Behavioral Health perhaps, or one of our local clinics, and that we can have some services there, but to be able to serve a community of over 50,000 students, we would also want to be able to refer out and have that connection for our families. So did that answer your question? So it is, it's really about this idea of access and making sure that information is shared across the board initially.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Trayvon Martin. I just had a quick question, or not really a question, just a statement. I would hope that through this process and somewhere we have it actually on paper, because my philosophy is that if it's not on paper, it's not going to happen. I would hope that we have some sort of training model in here. If we're talking about having these services and program information at the enrollment center and then also at the school sites, and we know that our turnover rate for our clerical staff is very, very high, I would hope that we have a robust training model to keep all of the people that are coming in and coming out trained on this. If not, then we're gonna have the same thing. We have a fragmented system where people are getting this information at this school, they're getting this information at the enrollment center, or whatever it's gonna be called. So I just hope that we don't think, because we have a centralized place and we have school sites, that it's just gonna be cohesive and, you know, it's gonna be all roses and everything.
Back to us, I'm sorry. Just to piggyback right on what Dr. Monada said and what Trayvon just said, and also to clarify what Mrs. Applegate said about the EL department. I think it's what's causing confusion here is because I see that it says language testing, dual immersion, and the EL department invests everything that's related to the English learners. And excuse my ignorance, but what does ELA stand for, Dr. Monares?
English Language Arts.
Okay, I'm sorry. But I think instead of having all the different acronyms that involves, for us as parents, we need more clarification as to what those stand for, because even though I'm an engaged parent, I don't know what a lot of the acronyms mean. And so that's something that we need to be trained on. And instead of having language testing, dual immersion, ABE, all the different departments that the English Learners Department is responsible for, it should just be English EL department, because we know that it invests a lot of things. And that was the purpose of 3 years, going back 3 years, that this DLAC started with this program. And as we moved on into finding out more information, that's when we decided, we said, a lot of parents didn't know about special ed. Where do the parents go for special ed? About GATE. I myself, as a parent, when I wanted to test my child for GATE, I didn't know where to go. I was being directed everywhere, and nobody ever told me that King Middle School was the school for the magnet school for the GATE kids. So we need to make sure that we have clearance that this is not only, yes, DLAC began with this project, but that's when we found out that our parents didn't know about the different programs. And so that's when it started being, saying, you know what, it's not only a necessity for English learners, it's a necessity for the entire community. So everybody needs to know about this, and everybody needs to be engaged, because as we discussed in our pre-meeting, Dr. Monares and Dr. Volcomer, a lot of parents don't know that if your child is an English learner, we don't know, a lot of parents don't know what the process is and what involves to have a child as an English learner, the different steps that have to be taken in order for your child to be properly placed. And that's the purpose of the English. And there's a purpose for asking for the gate. There is a purpose. There's testing that is involved for special education children. There is a process for everything. So everything, it's a process. We understand that. So let's just all, like I said, the acronyms, you know it, the district knows, but we as parents don't know, and that's why I said, excuse my ignorance, but I didn't know what ELA stands for. So I just want to clarify, and I'm not just advocating for a English learners department, I'm advocating for everybody. Thank you.
So a couple quick comments on that. We took the exact acronyms that were found on your sheets. I didn't want to redact what you put. I didn't think that you wanted me to start guessing what you were saying, so I listed exactly what was put. I didn't want to insert my own opinion about what was found in the building. And also, I know what's coming up further in the presentation, as I typed that this morning, and I know that Aldo is going to be discussing how we can better instruct parents on finding information about these programs. So I think, to your comment, I think that'll be addressed a little later on in the presentation. So why don't we jump forward a slide? Oh, perfect, I already jumped forward. So we took this purple sheet and we boiled it down even more, and we just listed the top priorities for each one of the 3 circles that we had. So under educational services, we listed program options and assessments for everything that was listed there, and advocacy as your top priorities. Under social and health services, we listed health services, mental services, and community services as the top priorities for the building. And then under building concepts, you can see all the other items that are listed there. So these are the top priorities based off of your input. We established that by meaning anything that received 50% or greater on the purple sheet is listed up here as a top priority. Food court didn't make the cut, sadly. I know. So now, if every one of you wants to kind of close your eyes, now that I've kind of told you what's in the building, I want everyone to take 20 seconds and think about what that building would look like in their mind. And I'm going to show you what that building looks like next. All right, 10 seconds. Everyone have an idea of what that building would look like for them? All right. Well, based off of your priorities, what we did is we went ahead and applied a square footage to every one of the items noted in the top priority, and that's what the building would look like. You've established a very large building. So we're going to have to work to be creative. But let me tell you how we arrived at the size building that we're looking to need. So if you look educational services, we determined that it probably needs to be about 5,680 square feet. The social and health services for family and students, about 4,700. The way we looked at that is we looked at about 2 or 3 different exam rooms, some rooms for counseling, restrooms, support offices, educational services. We looked at curriculum, language assessment. So we identified a number of spaces that would be needed to support that. And then under building concepts, those are items like public restrooms, lobby. We know the lobby should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 square feet. And so we tallied all those up, and we came to a whopping 15,834 square feet, more or less. A little larger than I had anticipated. We're going to work to kind of shrink that a bit. But the good news in all of this, to give you perspective what 15,000 square feet is, this building that we're in is 55,000 square feet, and the Board of Ed is 53,000 square feet. So if you want to kind of visualize what this building looks like, that building would probably be a bit smaller. It's about a third, 2/3 smaller. Questions, comments, concerns, good jokes? All right, moving on. All right, next slide. Oh, I saw Trayvon's hand, and I kind of,
I asked the tough questions.
I skipped right over him. Yes, sir.
So I just have a quick suggestion, and maybe this helps for clarity because we just had this conversation here, is when we say the name educational services, maybe it's better to change that because a lot of these things that are under educational services is not technically under the umbrella. And so we don't want to get confused when we say educational services. So like my partner here said, so why is educational services moving when we just got this building here? So maybe changing the name of educational services up there would help ease some people's
Sure,
concerns.
gladly. Educational programs, we'll come up with something different so there's no confusion. Appreciate the comment. Now that we know what the building looks like, I'm going to kind of run us through what it takes to build a building, either leasing a property and renovating it or building it. One of the first things that we do is we select an architect, which we've actually, over the past month, we have selected an architect for the work on this building. It's the same architect who's doing work up at North Park for us. I know they probably don't want me to mention this, but they've done the work at North Park for free. They believe in the community, and we felt that that partnership would be a good one to employ on this particular building. We actually brought a representative of the architecture firm here tonight. Jennifer, you want to stand up? She's the creative mind behind the North Park experience. So once we employ an architect, they create plans. Those plans then have to be approved by the following people: the City of San Bernardino, the Division of State Architect. They're actually the ultimate permitting agency. County Fire has to approve our plans. The California Department of Education has to approve our plans. Where it says CEQA, or California Environmental Quality Act, we have to do an environmental impact report. We have to prove that the building doesn't have a negative impact on our local community. It then has to be approved by all the different utilities. It also has to be approved by the California Department of Toxic Substance Control. Yes, ma'am.
So if we went with a building that we currently own, or the district currently owns, all of this approval will still need, even though?
Yes, ma'am, most likely. There would be a few of them that would drop off. So if we renovated an existing building that we own, the utilities would drop off. We would still have to be permitted through the state. We'd still have to have county fire approval. For a variety of reasons, yes, we would have to seek approval of all of those groups of people, even if it's our own property. In every modernization that we do, even on our own property, we still have to seek the same approvals. We have to make sure that current code is followed, and so we have to prove that our design meets current code, and code cycles happen every couple years. So sadly, yes, it doesn't save us a whole lot of time. So now what does that mean? Now that I've told you that I have to ask approval of everyone, excluding the White House, what does that mean? The next slide kind of outlines what that means. And this is kind of next steps as well as timelines. So the first two are very important. On August 15th, we are going to board to present the concept that you have outlined over the past two meetings, tonight and on June 19th. And then in September, the board will be approving a funding plan for a variety of things, including this building or leased options. Down below, you'll notice that I provided a timeline for completion, just so that we can review that, depending on if we lease and or purchase, and I'll talk about the pros and cons of each. Leasing a property, obviously you can see that we finish earlier than if you purchase property. It takes longer to purchase and build than it does lease. The drawbacks from leasing a property in downtown San Bernardino that's close to transportation is it's hard to find a 15,000 square foot building with 150 parking spaces. So we have some challenges in regards to leasing a building in downtown San Bernardino. Also, I think that it goes to the comment at this table. I think purchasing a building also provides a bit more legitimacy for the services being provided and longevity. I also feel stewardship of public money. When you own something, you own it, and when you lease it, it's not yours, you're just a renter. So I think that those are kind of the pros and cons for leasing. Purchasing comes with very similar pros and cons. Cons obviously taking how long it takes to construct a building, and the cash needed to purchase land, as well as building a new building. I wish we all had the money needed in our bank account to build the building that we've identified. So obviously funding is a challenge. Leasing obviously is cheaper on a year-to-year basis. And then purchasing land, it's hard to find land for sale in downtown San Bernardino to house the size property that we're looking for. So we have challenges ahead. Yes, ma'am.
So when will you determine the location versus purchasing or looking to lease? 'Cause I know one of the suggestions was the BOE.
So we've evaluated a lot of different options. I can speak to the BOE very briefly. It's actually one of the questions found in the parking lot in the back. The problem with the BOE is we have two different divisions located on the first floor of the BOE, meaning that's the HR and Business Services Division. There are quite a few employees. I think it's roughly 99 employees that would have to be relocated if they were moved out of the BOE to accommodate this building. We don't have room currently here in the PDC for an additional 100 employees. The other drawback to the first floor of the BOE is I don't think we'd have to do major renovations to accommodate the services required here. So instantly I kind of think that it's not the best option. We've looked at a lot of different options. I'm not sure that's my favorite option yet, but I think to answer your question, we're going to be presenting the board several options for their consideration, and I think ultimately they're going to determine which direction they want to move. That's not my call to make. I provide the information and let the board consider the options, and then they'll obviously vote and let the chips lie where they lie. So we hope to be making that recommendation at August 15th, and then from there that consideration obviously entails financing, which then shows up on the September board date. Does that answer your question appropriately? Anything else before we move on? Perfect. So that, you're lucky, ends my time in front of you, and I get to hand the mic off to someone more suited at speaking in front of a large group of people than I. So with that,
Stop.
where's Aldo? I just wanted to point out too that
You're setting me up.
I know that there was a question about if you could be 3 inches shorter, would you take it? I just want to point out that I could lose 6 inches and still be taller than Aldo. So,
I know, I'm a shorty.
and Aldo knows why he's taking my jabs, because I did his entire presentation for him.
Yes, he did. I appreciate that. He volunteered to translate and everything. So if you didn't know that about Tom, he's quite the Spanish speaker. So pull him aside and talk to him in Spanish. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Where do we have the? You got the. I'll let you know another thing about myself is I'm not a very good multitasker. So I have a microphone in one hand and a clicker on the other. It's not going to go well. We can establish that right now. So what we did with the in the meantime pieces is we took all of the prioritized information that we were able to glean from Tom's team's work, and then also what we've heard over time about your biggest concerns. And so we went ahead and outlined some things that we feel are very important to do relatively quickly in the meantime. So I'll go over those right now for all of you. So number one is to set up a web page for updates on the progress of the Centralized Services and Resources Center. So we don't quite have a name for it, but our big center. Somebody's vouching for the Hope Center. But so that'll be the first thing, just constant updates via a web page. Number two, set up a web page for families to easily access information about our district programs. So we have a brand new district webpage. We'll be working with communications to make sure that one of the very first things you see when you get on our district webpage is information about our district programs for students in a parent-friendly way. Number three, provide training for staff on district programs and the enrollment process. So speaking a little bit to the comment that Trayvon made earlier about making sure everybody has the required information to be able to inform families well on what our district programs are and how to access them. Number 4, establish online options for enrollment so that folks can go online and enroll their children and find out about the programs. Number 5, create a district resource catalog with information about educational services or programs, social and health services for families and students. And we want to place those resource catalogs in highly visible locations in our district. And also very important, communicate and present our counselors, our teachers, administrators, and our front office staff with this resource so they can utilize it in their daily communication with our families. Number 6, provide district program brochures for all enrollment packets. So when people come to enroll their children, they will also get a brochure that says these are our district programs that your child can be a part of. So those are our immediate next steps, next things to do. What we would like to do real quick is have you guys have a little conversation at your tables, and we're gonna do some jotting of notes here on the side to help us make these next step actions as robust as we possibly can. So we're gonna be using a little method called the discussion method. And what I would like you to do, first of all, is right there at your table groups, if you could put your heads together and each one of you identify for you what was the most important next step, next transition step. So just kind of identify what was for you your most important transition next step that you heard from the list that I just gave. So I'll give you just a couple of minutes. This should be fairly quickly, just whip around the table. So go ahead and get started. All right, guys, it sounds like you guys have started having wonderful conversations. Raise your hand if you mentioned training as your top one. So let me repeat that question. Raise your hand if you mentioned training as your top one. Yeah, as I walked around, I heard training a lot over and over again. So that kind of tells us oh, we better look at training. That's important. Okay, so question number 2. And you probably already started going into this, so I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time. But the question is, so based on what you heard around the table, what's your initial reaction? What does your gut tell you? Okay, so we'll just whip around real quickly. You probably already did this. If you did, just summarize what that gut reaction was. All right, team. So you're probably already doing this as well. But if you transition to the next question and answer, what does this mean for us? So you talked about what was most important. You heard your colleagues. You had a gut reaction to that. So what does that mean for us? All right, team. And the last question, the most important question, the one we'll jot your notes on. So you saw the list that we came up with of important next steps. Based on the discussion you just had, of those, what are the top priority next steps? Or what are some steps that weren't in there that you think we need to do? So have that discussion, and then we're going to call on each table to share what their thoughts are, and we're going to chart them down over here so we can keep those notes for us. So go ahead and what are the next steps you think will be important? So it could be highlighting the steps we've already mentioned, or it could be additional steps, immediate next steps that we will need to do. So go ahead and have that discussion for 5 minutes, and then we'll call on you to share out for us your thoughts. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and share our top one from each table. And then we'll have an opportunity to share if something wasn't mentioned that is also important. So we'll start over there with Pastor Mack. Let's give him a round of applause so he can warm up. So your most important next step.
I think the most important next step is to learn how to have excellent behavior and go forward without being negative, because we're making progress, but we got to learn how to be excellent in our progress and learn how to be excellent when we step forward and learn how to realize that we got all different types of diverse type of people that we're working with, but we're going to have to learn how to meet them on each level, because I work with so many people in the community. Learn how to be flexible, learn how to be pure in heart, learn how to be righteous, and learn how to let things go past you and push on forward, and you can get the job done. So that's what we're here, to get the job done, to look past. The past is over with. We got to move on to the future. We got to educate the future, and we got to educate all our young people. No matter how bad they seem like they might not be able to make it, they can make it if we get behind them. And if we get behind each other here, we can make it without any problem. And I feel like that we're going to go forward. That's what we need to do, is press on towards the mark of the highest calling.
Thank you, Pastor Mack. So in a few sentences, so work on our positive relationships and connections. Okay, we'll go over to next table. Who would like to? There we go.
We're going to say development of a comprehensive training program for the staff.
Development of a comprehensive training program for the staff. Thank you. And we'll move on to that table.
Oh my goodness. They talked about the importance of a timeline for the website. It could be such a valuable resource, but I think it was said over here that there should be somebody that's designated to be updating our district website. And then one of our parents here also said that they would like comprehensive explanations of programs and processes on how to get some of the things done, like a transfer, on that particular website. Yes, to provide information and resources.
Thank you. Do we have a microphone over?
Okay, so we identified 3. The first one is specific services clarified.
So say a little bit more about that.
Okay, so we had discussed earlier here how the services were kind of broad, ELA, and we want specific services, concrete, so that we know, and we know whether it's this is where you're getting information, or is the testing going to be done there, so that it's
at the
outright.
centralized center.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
And then our next one was a solid written plan to roll out services within the 3 years of construction. And then in the meantime, have concrete services ongoing.
Okay. I'll let Dr. Monades catch up. Thank you. So plan to roll out the services during the 3 years. And then the last one was a concrete plan for in the meantime services?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So
that one's related to how are we going to transition the folks and establish the services at the centralized location? And then the last one is about having a concrete plan for in the meantime. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Do we have somebody at this table right over here?
Okay, so we came up with providing departments adequate space, to perform the necessary duties. And thus far, we hear that those mobiles at the Board of Ed are vacant. In the meantime.
So in the meantime, make sure departments have adequate space to do what they need to do.
Provide departments adequate space to perform necessary employee duties.
Or in the meantime work.
Empty space and consolidate departments and bring the departments together, because it is going to be, you need an interim housing plan. So if there are plans, an interim housing plan.
I think that captures it, right?
An interim housing plan for fragmented departments. See, I'm glad we have an architect in the house. Okay.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
We were discussing, we would like to have a concrete plan for options and locations.
For the centralized service.
Yes.
A concrete plan for,
What are our options for the locations?
okay, for the options for our location. Yes. Okay, and then do we have one here?
There was discussion on all the information that we provide, specifically the website, but whether it's brochures or whatever, that it's accurate and up to date. A parent was trying to ensure that she was attending the correct meeting and wanted to see an agenda to make sure that she didn't have it mixed up with another meeting. Or she has friends that contact her with similar questions, so that we're doing a good job ensuring our brochures and webpage, everything is up to date with all the information in the meantime.
So ensuring that all of our information is accurate and up to date on the webpage. Dr. Marsden, did you, okay, good. I was assuming you guys were good, but want to make sure. All right. Well, is there anything that wasn't mentioned by the group that somebody feels really strongly should have been? Raise your hand. What is that saying? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Anything? Okay. We thank you so much. So it looks like our thoughts are on the right track, but a lot more specificity and concreteness needs to be added to them. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much. And next, I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Monares. And she has her own microphone, which is awesome. So
wow.
Thank you.
We are ahead of ourselves today. Last time we were struggling for time. Today we actually have some time, so that's wonderful. So, our very initial next steps before we get to our confidence line and just get a test of where everyone is feeling is we would like to do an update to our board on August 15th. And so we'd like a couple of volunteers from the group who would be willing to meet with myself, with Aldo, and with Tom. We already have the date set on when we can meet because our calendars get really filled, so we had to get that date set. So what we're looking at is a meeting on August 1st. It is in the middle of the day. It's from 1 to 2:30. And you would sit down with us and we would plan out what we would present to the board on August 15th. Do we have any volunteers who would like to do that? We would really like some of our parents sitting in the audience, our community members, to be a part of that. Awesome. 1, 2, 3. Terry, will you come and get their names? And 4. Great. And so we'll get your contact information, we'll send you the meeting invite, and then we'll go from there. Thank you so much. The team really appreciates you standing up and doing that with us and for us. So a lot of information. Trayvon, did you have a question or a comment? Let's get Trayvon we need a microphone because remember you're out in, I keep saying TV land, but I really am aging myself because we're on YouTube, aren't we?
On the August 15th meeting at the board, is what's going to be presented to the board, is it going to be the options to choose a location, or is it just going to be the services that the group discussed here tonight?
We will be sharing both what has happened in the last two meetings. Some of our board members were at the meeting on June 19th. We can see that today. They're not physically here. They may be logging in. They did last time. But we want to be able to share in a public setting everything that's taken place and the recommendations that at this point are coming from this group. So things like, so thank you, because you gave me a perfect transition. Things like, we know that in this building, we want to have educational program informational options. We know that came loud and clear from the group. 14 out of 14 posters shared that, right? We know, and so what that means is we want to make sure our community knows what we have to offer, and then we can talk about how many people we can physically get in there after our board takes action on the actual allocation, right? But this first one is about, what is this group saying? So we know educational program options. We know advocacy, right? And we just labeled these things, you guys, just to try to give a label. But what we saw in the posters was that this group of parents and team members that are here right now are saying, we want people to inform us on what's available. So whether it's around services for our foster youth and homeless, whether it's around A through G and how do I make sure my student is on track for college, whether it's around FAFSA, whatever it might be, these terms that we just throw out. I'm sorry, I did another one. FAFSA is the financial aid applications that you fill out for your students when they are getting ready to go off to college. And so you need to know that as a parent, especially going into that senior year. Yeah, that's a really important one. So there's a lot of information, and so that would be something which we would share with the board. We'd also share with the board that loud and clear, we heard that we want to have a space where our families can access immunization, whether it's for that 7th grade immunization TDAP, whether it's for incoming kinder and first graders, whether it's for dental services. We know that our community wants that, as well as access to referrals to mental health, and possibly some mental health services that could be provided in this space. We actually have some people that work for the district. So we know those are big lifts that this group would like, right? 14 out of 14 tables said that. We know that those are big pieces. That's the type of information we'll be sharing with our board. Yes, and thank you for that little, I'll get you later on that one. I appreciate it. No, I'm just kidding. We're just like that, right? We're like that, Trayvon. So anyway, so that's what the board presentation is. Now, the board won't take action in terms of allocation of funds until we go through the budget presentation, and that will be in September. But we want to keep them informed about what's going on. Correct, Ms. Christakos? Yes, okay, good. All right, so I want to make sure. Now, there's one more piece that came out multiple times, and it was this idea around training. So for those of you who didn't watch the board meeting last week, the board did take action and approved a family engagement strategic plan, which is a 3-year plan, and deeply embedded. So running through that strategic plan, and I'm seeing many of you in here who sat with Aldo and went through all of the work to get this ready, is this idea about training up everybody who engages with our families, right? So we will be training, and it's not a one-time training. It's something that's going to take a lot of time, and we're going to do this in collaboration with our educational services division, because they work with our teachers and they work with our site administrators. And so it's this collaborative effort between student services and educational services, but really making sure that every single building that our families walk into and that our students walk into, whether that's the BOE, whether that's here at the PDC, whether that's at our new center that we will have at one point, and whether that's at a school site, that anybody who walks through that door feels that sense of being welcomed here, of being heard here, that this is a safe place to ask questions, and that we're going to nurture you as part of our San Bernardino City family, if you will. So that's throughout that family engagement strategic plan. And actually, the development of a centralized hub is what we called it in that plan, which is this work, is also in there. So this work, it's strategy 8 that we're talking about here, that's in a much bigger plan around family engagement. And so invite you to go into the board presentation and watch that from last week. And then we're also going to have a kickoff for it in August, so watch for information on that at the end of August. So all of that to say there's a lot of this going on is kind of parallel play right now. When children are really young, they're toddlers, and I know for those of you who had young children, you know that when you're really young, you'll see children playing next to each other, but they're not playing with each other, right? But they're both playing. That's called parallel play. Well, right now we've kind of got some parallel play when it comes to our family engagement, right? We've got this strategic plan that's going on. We've got this conversation around a centralized location to offer services. We've got this idea around enrollment and online enrollment. We want it as much as everyone else does here. So there's a lot of work going on. Now we're going to bring it all together. So it's a very exciting time. So now's the time. You're going to have you stand up. We've got our posters up from last time. We've got the same red, yellow, and green. We want to see where we're at right now, okay? So what we're going to do, because we have time, we're going to do this in two parts. So the first part is, how are we doing in terms of your confidence in our interest and plan to provide a centralized location for access to resources in San Bernardino? How are we doing in building that confidence in us? If you would please stand by the red, yellow, or green in terms of where you are right now with how we're doing things. And then I'll give you your next. Okay. We're going to go to the next question, then we'll get your information. So I'm going to pose the next one to the group. So then what do you need to hear or see from the next time we come together, and we actually do have a next meeting, to stay where you're at if you're green, or move up to the green from the yellow? So what do you need to see or hear next time to stay at the green or move up? Go ahead and talk about that. All right, are we ready to share out? I know the yellow is. I was watching, very passionate over here. Is the green ready as well? Are you good? Okay. So we'll just pass it around. We'll continue to listen. We have the time, so go ahead.
Okay, so
yellow to green.
The question that we are gonna answer is how to move to green, right?
How to move to green, yes.
Okay, so we felt like we needed concrete services that were gonna be in the center, and stop having the conversation about it. Also, we would have liked to see the options that are being proposed. We heard that there was 3 options on the table right now. We would have liked to hear those options. Thirdly, we would have liked to hear funding. Where is the funding coming from? How much do we expect to spend on this building? And that was it, right? And then a clear plan. Yeah.
Clear plan on the concrete services, correct?
On concrete services,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Did I miss anything? Anyone want to add anything? Okay, I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
We were all okay with remaining here as long as we continue to see progress and as long as we stay a part of the process. Was that yeah?
So you want to see progress.
Continue
and you
to
want
see progress.
And you want to continue to be engaged in the process.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, well, see, this was kind of nice because we can do all these things for you. Lowers the anxiety. It lowers the anxiety. So again, just to help with the process of, well, how does this funding work, and do we have locations and all of this? Understand that and this is the nice part, but also kind of the sticky part of it, right? We engage with our community and our stakeholders and whomever is going to help us shape this information, and then we provide recommendations to our school board. They are the ones who make the final decisions. So they will determine based on, and so in terms of funding, for example, our business services will give them all kinds of information about where money can come from, and the board takes action on that. So sometimes it's this, which one do we do first, the chicken or the egg? Can we decide on exact services before we know what the size of the building will be? And that will be based on the funding, right? So we have your information. The board wanted to hear from the community. The board will get that information from the community on August 15th, And then in September, the board will get information on funding, and then we can go from there. So that is why we aren't physically coming back together until October 19th to allow for these meetings to take place in between. What we will do for you in the meantime is that we will push out. So we want to make sure we have email addresses from people. And if we don't have email addresses, Aldo had shared, we're going to have a web page developed that you can log in and you can see what's going on. Because we do understand it's a time span, and we were a little nervous about telling you we're not going to come together until October. But we also understand that we don't want to bring you back together again and not have a lot of information to share, right? Because then that's not a good use of people's time as well. And so how do you find that balance? And so we're hoping this is the right way to have a place, you know, thank goodness for technology now, where you can go in, you can see how things are going. Don't expect something one day to the next. Allows for some time in between. But no, there's some dates, right? We've got August 15th. We've got a board presentation. August 15th for the update to the board. We've got September for the funding piece. And then we come back together again in October. So it actually will move pretty quickly. Your kiddos are going to start going back to school, so you're going to be busy getting them already. And so I think that this will be able to meet all of these needs. And anticipate that in October, y'all going to be on this side. Y'all going to be right over here in the green.
Can you clarify that the August 15th meeting, anyone can come? That was some of the concerns, and so we kind of shared that anyone can come to the board meeting, anyone could put in a public comment card and speak on this topic. So I just wanted to make sure that that's said, because that was a concern from some of the parents here.
Yes, absolutely. Always. All board meetings are public meetings, and so you are always welcome to the board meetings. We welcome having our community there. You help keep us on our toes to make sure we're best serving your students. So absolutely. And if there's anyone who would like to also be part of the formal presentation, just let us know, and we'll invite you as well. But always, yes, always welcome. Always welcome. Anything for the good of the cause, Dr. Marsden? No? All right. Anything for the good of the cause amongst the groups? No, we're good? Well, thank you so much. Continue to engage with us and have a great evening.